I just want to correct one misimpression that seemed to have got around after our reception last night, and this is on the subject of autographs. The gentlemen who are here on the stage are free targets for autographs at any time that you catch up with them, and what Mrs. McKinney was particularly concerned about was about autographs at the dinner, because there it does become confusing and awkward. But the authors are here where they have books or articles that you want autographed. That's one reason they're here. These will all be making their headquarters in Stanborough Hall, but there will be others around. Eventually Dr. Kirshner will be here, Taylor Caldwell is here, and I think she and Dr. Kirshner will be at Devin Garrity's booth, the Devin Adair Company, and you will find other authors like Prince Sturza here, and there are no holds barred on autographs from these people, and not even the $2 charge that Anna talked about. So make yourselves at home, and I'm going to turn the meeting over immediately to Scott Stanley, because he deserves the credit for what's been done, and we're delighted to have him here. Thank you.
Thanks, Ladies and gentlemen, before I begin, just one brief word about applause in the introduction of this crew of terrorists. Please don't applaud for each one. You may smile, you may look eager, but please don't applaud for each one, because after all, we outnumber you. Only rarely in our literature, as perhaps with Henry Mencken or Frank Harris, has a single editor had charge of the care and feeding of so many and so magnificent a herd of what C.S. Lewis called our singing beasts. I refer, of course, to the authors who appear regularly in American Opinion and the Review of the News, who it is now my pleasure to introduce. As I introduce them, I'll just read their name. I ask that they'll just stand briefly and then sit down as I go on to recount their meritorious or meretricious activities, as the case may be. To my far right, Mr. Robert W. Lee. Robert Lee, Administrative Assistant to Reed Benson in the Washington office of the John Birch Society. Robert Lee is a contributing editor to the Review of the News. Both a devout Mormon and a state champion golfer, Bob never golfs on Sunday, which Gus Hall of the Communist Party tells me Robert Lee spends drinking coffee, Coke, and whiskey while chain-smoking cigarettes and eluding his 14 wives. Of course, my information may be a little tainted, as Gus Hall sometimes lies. Medford Evans, Associate Editor of American Opinion and the premier reviewer of books on the American right, Professor Evans was in charge of security training on the Manhattan Project, which might explain why he is forever writing about the Russians stealing our H-bombs. We are beginning to get the idea that maybe he feels guilty. Besides that, he is a PhD and has written books. In case you have decided from all of this that Medford isn't any good at all, take heart. He now lives in Jackson, Mississippi, and he is being considered as a candidate to run for governor against the black racist brother of the late Medgar Evers. White racists down there figure that the name Medford Evans looks and sounds enough like Medgar Evers to confuse the black voters and convince them that they are being haunted. The current line in Mississippi is that when Medgar Evers died, he turned white and began to mumble his name. I am assured by former Governor Ross Barnett that this brilliant strategy will split the block vote in Mississippi between Medgar Evers' brother and Medford Evans. A electing as governor Barnett's candidate, a seventh-generation, non-Catholic, white, and racially pure mule, stubborn enough to say never and mean it. James Drummy, news editor of the Review of the News. Jim Drummy is responsible for reducing literally thousands of pages of news a week into the 12 pages of capsulated reporting which introduce our weekly magazine. He is a graduate of Boston College and of the Carl McIntyre Correspondence School of Crowd Estimation. Jim Drummy is, in my opinion, the most careful, brilliant, and effective news analyst in American journalism. Hilaire de Berrier, contributing editor to both American Opinion and the Review of the News, Hilaire de Berrier has just flown in from Europe for this program. A magnificent man with the manner of a bon vivant and the mind of a spy, he is author of Background to Betrayal, the True Story of Vietnam. We are most anxious to have Hilaire's impressions of the Pentagon Papers, and we'll ask him to comment on them shortly. Harold Lord Varney, a contributing editor to American Opinion, author of a brilliant analysis of Latin America in the current Scoreboard issue, and author of a highly informative commentary on Mr. Nixon and Red China in next week's Review of the News. Mr. Harold Lord Varney is a very busy man indeed. He began his career in political affairs as a speechwriter for President Harding, is currently editor of the authoritative Pan American Headlines, and was formerly advisor to the Republic of China. Alan Stang, contributing editor of both American Opinion and the Review of the News. Did they put the box down there for we just stand on, Stang? Alan Stang is forever writing books and articles calling people communists. People like Martin Luther King, John Foster Dulles, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, Joseph Stalin, Karl Marx. Author of It's Very Simple and the actor, as well as many powerful exposés, he is a fearless reporter. Revolutionary leader Ray Tijerina has promised that if Stang ever again enters New Mexico, Tijerina will kill him, which isn't anything compared to what Mrs. Stang says she will do to me if I ever again send her husband chasing a bunch of Tijerinistas armed with machine guns and machetes. After all, before Tijerina had at him with his machete, Alan Stang was 7 feet tall. George S. Schuyler, contributing editor to both American Opinion and the Review of the News. George S. Schuyler is an internationally famous author, lecturer, and syndicated journalist. Among his books currently available are Black No More and Black and Conservative. I've discussed with Mr. Schuyler Medford Evans' possible candidacy for governor of Mississippi, posing as a Negro. George, a founder of the New York Conservative Party, thinks it might work. He says that, after all, Adam Clayton Powell was elected to Congress from Harlem a dozen times doing exactly the same thing. In my never humble opinion, George S. Schuyler is unquestionably among this nation's half-dozen greatest living journalists. When it comes to style, wit, and roar, he makes black and white work together on paper in a way that even the narrow fellows of Boston's reptile press must see and credit. In such company as that assembled at this table, the word genius is not lightly applied. I venture to say that there is not one of us on this dais who does not associate that word with George Schuyler. Frank A. Capel, a frequent contributor over the last year to both of our magazines, Frank A. Capel is also editor of the respected Herald of Freedom newsletter. A man of Catholic spirit and great personal courage, his article on intelligence in the January American Opinion is undeniably the best article on the Central Intelligence Agency to have ever reached print. Frank is author of The Untouchables and a number of other books, is a profound intelligence specialist of almost 30 years standing, and is an active Catholic layman. William E. Dunham, a contributing editor to the Review of the News, it is Bill Dunham's responsibility each week to produce our 2-page correction please. So ably has Bill researched and written this feature that it has sold and continues to sell many millions of reprints. William E. Dunham does the kind of straight, hard, lean writing that makes our reprints make sense. He is a graduate of Gordon College and an active Protestant layman. Reed A. Benson, another contributing editor to the Review of the News. Reed Benson has interviewed many world leaders and heads of state, including Nikita Khrushchev and Robert Welch. A former staffer for both the Republican National Committee and the Republican Congressional Committee, Reed is now Washington Director of Public Relations for the John Birch Society. Like Bob Lee, his co-conspirator, Reed is a devout Mormon. Father Francis E. Fenton. Father Fenton is Associate Editor of the Review of the News. He was ordained to the priesthood in 1944, having studied at St. Thomas's Seminary and the Catholic University of America. As a private citizen, Father Fenton is a member of the National Council of the John Birch Society. I know of no better way to illustrate the kind of courage this man of God represents than to quote the conclusion of an article on the notorious Berrigan brothers from next week's The Review of the News. Father Fenton closes this way. In my book, the Berrigans are not good guys. They are not saints or martyrs or prophets. They are revolutionaries, dedicated subversives, hell-bent on doing their bit to disrupt the orderly functioning of government and to create a maximum of confusion and turmoil in this country. If they and their ilk are encouraged by responsible authorities to continue their disruption and destruction, the result will be ever-widening confusion and chaos on the American scene, a condition made to order for the communist conspiracy as a prelude to its planned takeover of America. The Berrigans have made it clear that they have no intention of leaving the priesthood. That's understandable. I can't imagine anything else they could be which could get more mileage in what they're trying to do to America, to my church, and to our civilization. It is no secret among informed Americans of all religions that the Catholic Church, once the great bastion against communism, is anything but that today. While examples are numerous in support of this, one is surely the fact that men such as Philip and Daniel Berrigan are allowed to remain priests in good standing in that church. To my mind, it is incredible. For the next hour, we are going to give 5 of these sturdy terrorists a chance to address you briefly. That concluded, we're going to attempt a panel discussion without bloodletting, if our microphones hold out. And so now, ladies and gentlemen,